2020 Plan Commission to order. Roll call, please.
Anna here.
Sullivan here.
Grillo here.
Lorick here.
David here.
Guzikowski here.
Donnie here.
Seifert here.
Chandler here.
Thank you for that. Before we do the minutes, I'm going to ask Carrie to read in the notice of video conferencing, please.
The City of Oak Creek is authorized to hold this public meeting remotely during the COVID-19 public health emergency under the March 16th and March 20th advisories from the Office of Open Government and the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Per the advisories, this meeting being conducted via Zoom video conference with telephone conferencing capabilities was duly noticed for the City of Oak Creek Municipal Code and statutory notice requirements more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Members of the public have been advised of the options for participation via direct mailing to property owners within 300 feet of a proposal, via the COVID-19 information page on the city's website, via social media, and via the information contained on the meeting agenda. This meeting may also be viewed at the city's YouTube page, the link for which was contained in all aforementioned notice methods. The meeting recording will also be accessible on the city's YouTube page within 48 hours. Plan commissioners and participants are initially muted upon joining the meeting. Plan commissioners and staff have the ability to mute and unmute their microphones throughout the meeting. Please mute at all times except for roll call, motions, voting, and when recognized by the chair. Roll call and voting shall occur per the usual and customary procedure, starting from plan commissioners seating positions south to north in the Common Council chambers. The chair will facilitate questions and comments by calling on each plan commissioner or by requesting the use of the raise hand function in the Zoom webinar control panel. Only speak when you have been recognized by the chair or moderator. Applicants, their representatives, and all other participants who wish to speak will be unmuted when there is a direct request for information from the plan commissioner staff. When the participant utilizes the raise hand function within the Zoom webinar control panel and the moderator verbally indicates that they are unmuted, or when a phone participant dials *9 to indicate that they wish to speak and the moderator verbally indicates that their line is open. When unmuted, all participants must state their name and address for the record, then proceed with comments or questions. Questions and comments may also be entered into the Q&A function within the Zoom webinar control panel. Staff and/or the moderator will monitor this function during the meeting and provide the information requested. There shall be no private messages or side conversations during the meeting utilizing the chat or Q&A functions. Chat and Q&A messages are part of the public record. There is one or more public hearings scheduled as part of this meeting. After the chair announces the public hearing, staff will read the public hearing notice into the record, state that the hearing is open and subject to the meeting procedure previously mentioned, and provide a brief overview of the proposal. The chair will then proceed with the hearing by making calls for public comment. Following the third call for public comment, the chair will close the public hearing and proceed to consideration of the remaining agenda items. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. That will get us to approval of the minutes of October 27th, 2020. If everybody please take a look and see if there's any omissions, errors, corrections. When everyone is satisfied, we'll entertain a motion.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of October 27th, 2020.
Guzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Anna, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
David, aye.
Guzikowski, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thank you. Item 4 is significant common council actions. Carrie.
There were none to report.
Thank you. Gets us to item 5, and it is our first and only public hearing of the night. And it's for a sign appeal for the Waters at the 8000 South Market Street. And they are proposing variances to their signage going on in a building. So, Carrie, would you please read the official notice?
City of Oak Creek notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. This meeting will be held by video phone conference only. Persons wishing to participate in the video conference, including applicants and the representatives, must register via the website prior to the meeting. The video conference will begin at 5:55 p.m. to allow participants to log in. Attendees who wish to participate by phone may do so by calling the City Hall at 414-766-7000 before 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting, which is November 10th, 2020, to obtain a meeting call-in number. Persons who wish to view the meeting live without participating may visit the City of Oak Creek YouTube page at the link provided. Persons requiring other reasonable accommodations may contact the city at 414-766-7000. Requests should be made as far in advance as possible, preferably a minimum of 48 hours. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held November 10th, 2020 at 6 p.m. online via video conference per the information previously mentioned. The appellant is Dan Budrick of The Waters. The tax key number is 813-906-5000, property location at 8000 South Market Street. The request is variances from section 170334, part of the Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Plan Development District, General Development Plan and Regulating Plan, which states that signs on awnings are limited to a maximum height of 5% of the retail floor height, and section 170705C, which states that, in part, a name sign not exceeding 2 square feet in area located immediately in front of this entrance to an establishment may be suspended from a marquee awning or canopy, provided that the name sign is at least 8 feet above the sidewalk. If granted, the variances would allow the applicant to install the following on the existing awnings on the west elevation of the multi-tenant residential building: 2 28.9-inch by 105-inch signs, 2 30-inch by 29.6-inch signs graphics, and 1 10-inch by 210-inch sign. The zoning of the property is DTS MUPDD, Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Plan Development District. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 21st day of October 2020, Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek. Mayor Dan Bukevich, Chairman. This is a public hearing. All those who wish to speak on this matter, please indicate that you wish to speak by dialing *9 or using the raise hand function in the Zoom webinar control panel. Please state your name, address, and who you're representing for the record before proceeding to speak. This is a public hearing and it is now open. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Carrie, would you like to give us a little bit of background on it before we go to the public hearing?
Certainly. So the request again is to have signs on the existing awnings on the west side of the building. So one of the things that we need to keep in mind here is that both the DTS regulating plan and code do not specify awnings on residential buildings at all. So the request is a little bit interesting and why we have a variance here. So the existing awnings are screen printed with various graphics, and you can see those on the screen right here. The awnings were already installed, so what we're talking about specifically are the graphics and the text on there. So one of the things to keep in mind also is that even though this is a residential building and there's nothing that we can go on with regard to awnings on residential buildings in code or the plan, this building was designed similar to other mixed-use buildings in Drexel Town Square. So the first floor is one of those street activation areas. And what happens there is most of the non-residential activities happen on the first floor. So they have their dining facility, for instance, their main entrance is on the first floor on the west side of the building, etc. And those services on the ground floor, again, similar to the Forge and Flair buildings. So it's like a mixed use building, even though it's purely residential in nature. The variance considerations for the Plan Commission in terms of sign appeals, you can consider the location, height, size, appearance, number, etc. Anything except for content. So whether or not you feel that a flower or the wording on the awnings is appropriate, you cannot determine whether or not that is actually appropriate, as opposed to is there something allowable on those awnings themselves, regardless of whatever it is. The approval criteria are also on the screen for your consideration. Staff doesn't make any recommendations with regard to motions for sign appeals. There is a suggestion for, if you wish to approve these, a motion within the staff report. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Carrie. As Carrie said, this is a public hearing. We will make 3 calls. If there's anybody wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function or I'm sure Kevin will be alerted if you wish to speak on the item. This will be the first call.
We have the applicant, Dan. Dan will need your name, address, and company for the record, and then you're free to speak. You have to unmute yourself as well.
Yeah, hi, good evening. My name is Daniel, last name's Budrick, B-U-D-R-E-C-K, and my company is the Waters of Oak Creek Senior Living, and address is 8000 South Market Street in Oak Creek, 53154. And I just wanted to kind of go over some of our bullet points on our request here. Just basically stating that, that for us, the Waters Senior Living, we literally would have no other identifying signage on the street side of our building besides what you would see here, the graphics that are on the awnings. And just to kind of let you know, all know too, we frequently receive calls from people wishing to, prospects that we might have for senior living that are wishing to see our building or tour our building. And before we had these graphics on, we had a lot of prospects that had hard times finding the building with the multiple different apartment buildings that are in Drexel Square. We've had many issues with people trying to locate us, be it prospects or vendors that we have, and some of those vendors do deliver medical supplies or medications for some of our residents. And we've had quite a few instances, probably more or less pre-COVID, where we had a lot of the general public that would just come in and they wanted a tour to see an apartment and they didn't actually know that we were senior living. So, I guess part of our philosophy and our thought behind this was to do something extremely tasteful that would represent who we are and what we are, and that would, be kind of eloquent for Drexel Town Square, as a lot of the properties are. And I think a couple of our other concerns though too is, we have a lot of, even right now, essential visitors with COVID going on, that before we had the signage on, they would be calling, trying to find which one was our building. And it's been extremely challenging since we opened to not have any identification on, especially street side or Drexel Square side, kind of saying who we are and what we are. And we also have some, prospects and residents that do have vision problems. And, the flower that you see on there is our dahlia, and that's part of our branding. And of course, our logo with the waters and that we're thriving senior living, that's kind of all of our branding. And, with that identification on there, people with, vision issues, we're dealing with seniors every day with prospects. It kind of stands out enough to where they'll identify us in Drexel Square. And really, we love having our presence in Oak Creek and in Drexel Square. And this graphic signage really helps identify us, I guess is our main point. And we really appreciate you working with us on this and looking into this matter.
Great, thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that. Is there anything else before we see if there's anybody else wishing to speak?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you for the bullet points. Appreciate it. This will be the second call. Anybody wishing to speak?
All right, nobody raised their hand for that call,
And our third and final call.
and nobody for that call either.
Okay, we will now close the public hearing. That was 5A, and we will move on to new business, and that is 6A, and that is consideration of the sign appeal we just heard for the waters at Oak Creek. At this time, I will turn it over to the commissioners for questions and comments. Christine, will you start us off?
Sure, I did review, and I think from the presentation we just had now, it looked like a good addition, so it looks good to me. So no comments here.
Thank you, Christine. Matt?
I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay, Dawn?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Being at the farmer's market in the town square outside all the time, we've directed many people looking for the waters on a Saturday morning. So some additional signage is probably a great thing.
Thank you for the comments. Greg?
I agree. I have no issues with this. I didn't realize that there was no sign on the building to begin with. So reading the rationale they submitted and then hearing Daniel go over it again, it just makes sense to allow it to be put on. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Chris?
I agree with everybody else. I think it's also done tastefully, so it helps people find the building much easier, and that's really the primary reason I would support this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Don?
I have no questions.
Fred?
The only comment I have is that I think it's very tasteful signage for the area, but what about future signage on awnings for the Drexel Town Square?
You know, I'm glad you bring that up because Drexeltown Square is getting into about 5 years, and I think it's something we should look at. I think it can enhance it, quite frankly. You know, we're on Channel 12. They always do shots of a square. I think it's something we should talk about in the future, Fred. I think that's an excellent point.
Thank you.
Chauncey?
Yes, going with the prior commissioner's comments, I do have a question for Carrie. So are there any awnings that exist on residential buildings which have a lower level with multiple activities in Drexel Town Square? Does that exist today?
Not purely residential buildings, no. The only other buildings that have awnings on them are the Forge and Flare buildings. And those are a little bit different, again, because the first floor are actually commercial spaces. So the commercial spaces, some of them, not all of them, have awnings on them. And the comment made about how would future signs be addressed and how would future awning signs be addressed is a good one. Something that I'd like the plan commissioners to keep in mind as we're doing our code update. One of the things that we will be looking at is maximum amounts of signage. Nothing to do with this particular application, of course. But no, there aren't any other awning signs in Drexel Town Square yet.
So how are residential areas providing their marketing or identifying which building or item is in that building today?
So Forge and Flare is kind of interesting because they actually initially had plans for awning signs to say Forge and Flare. They also had blade signs planned to say Forge and Flare to be mounted to the corners of the buildings. And for whatever reason, they chose not to go forward with those. So that leaves us with Emerald Row and Parterre. And both of those chose to have monument signs. And that's the way that most of the residential throughout the city is identified as well, as through monument signs.
So does this location have an option for a monument sign?
You know, they originally had a monument sign showing on their site plan, but I think with the necessary placement of utilities, that location got kind of usurped. So really the only options that they have would be for a wall sign somehow, or a blade sign on the corner, or as they've chosen to do, propose awnings.
Thanks, Carrie. So I do have a question for the applicant. So can you provide a little information about the other options which were investigated prior to putting the awnings up?
With us,
Yes.
Daniel? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, just unmuted. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I know. And I think Carrie was exactly right. There was a plan for signage on it it would be the northwest corner of our property. But yeah, utilities has taken all of that space up, literally from our lot line to our patio. We have a patio, what would be to the far left of this picture on the north side of our property, for our residents to use. That's outside of our dining room. And then the actual building facade is pretty narrow, as you can see with the columns, and it's like that all the way street side. And I don't know if Brandy Galloway is on. She might have another idea too as to what else. She works with our owner, and I think they might have had another proposal too for a sign, but for some reason that did not go through.
Okay. And one additional question, what's the maintenance plan for awnings, just to make sure that they continue looking?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So the graphics were pretty reasonably priced. It's just basically an outdoor graphic with outdoor adhesive, and the maintenance plan would just replace sections, or it would probably be the whole section because it comes as one graphic. If we ever have any issues or maintenance issues, we want to keep it looking real pristine and crisp. So our company for that whole project, it was be a couple $1,000s. So if we had to replace a section for maintenance issues, it'll be a pretty minimal cost.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll just weigh in on it. I agree with all the commissioners. Good questions, good discussion. I think it really, really looks nice. The waters, it kind of dresses it up. I agree with Dawn. I've personally directed people there at different events at Town Square. It needs some identification. I think it actually really improves. And again, a monument sign would be on one side of the building or the next. So if you were coming from the south, the building was on the north by the walkway, the patio described, you'd drive by it. So I'm in favor of it. Again, it is a thriving business. They're going to upkeep the maintenance of it. It's their first impression. You get 7-10 seconds to get a first impression. I think this really helps improve it of a already really nice development. So are there any other questions or comments before I ask for a motion?
Seifert moves that the Plan Commission approves a sign variance allowing the installation of two 28 by 9 inches high and 108 inches wide signs on two existing awnings, one per awning. Two 30-inch high by 29.6 inches wide signs graphic on two existing awnings, one per awning, and one 10-inch high by 210-inch wide sign on one existing awning.
Oracle second.
If I can interrupt here, there's a little bit more following those bullet points to complete the motion.
Okay, on the west elevation of the Waters multifamily residential building located at 8000 South Market Street. Is that covered, Carrie?
That completes it.
Thank you. Sorry
Great,
about that.
Thank you, Fred.
Oracle second.
Roll call, please.
Hannah, aye.
Golden eye.
Hello, I.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Okay, Daniel, good luck. Look forward to seeing it. Hopefully you can get it in while the weather's still good.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, have a good evening.
You too.
Item 6B, it is a consideration of a temporary use permit submitted by One Headlight Power Sports, doing business as the House of Harley Davidson. And this is for the operation of the motorcycle training course down at Kohler's parking lot. at 7925 South 13th. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, this is a motorcycle operator training course temporary use permit request. It is similar to the ones that were approved by the Plan Commission in June and November of 2018 and December of 2019. So it is something that the Plan Commission has reviewed previously and approved. And the proposal is to have this operator training course in the south portion of the Colders parking lot. So if you're looking at the graphic on the screen, north is actually to your right. The courses are going to be held or allowed to be held 7 days a week between March 23rd and November 8th of next year. Keep in mind, though, that within the proposal, the applicant stated that the advertised course days would be Wednesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And the reason that they're asking for the extra days is to allow for rescheduling due to inclement weather or student retesting requirements. We've not received any complaints from the previous permits that we are aware of. If anybody is unfamiliar with this particular training course, that is the operation of a motorcycle that they have provided in the exhibit there. They provide all of the equipment and training vehicles. So they are asking, as with the previous permit applications that the Plan Commission has reviewed, to have an on-site cargo container for the duration of the permit term. They have also asked, as in previous requests, for 2 4x8 signs to be displayed on the cargo container for the training course itself. So each one of these has been approved in the previous requests, and what I've included in terms of the graphics on the screen, which were not part of your packets, these are literally just Google Street View showing you, luckily, when the course was being held at the Colders parking lot. So you can get an idea of just the area that is cordoned off for the course and just an idea of how it looks from both the freeway side and the parking lot side. So if the Plan Commission is satisfied with the proposal and wishes to make a motion to approve, there is a suggestion motion for approval on the screen. It is in 2 parts. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Before we have the applicants speak, I just want to announce a little bit of housekeeping. If you don't pay attention to your side chat, we've been requested that if you have a camera and are able to use that camera, please turn it on, particularly when voting. In the virtual meeting world, it is really recommended we do that by our city attorney. We understand if you don't have camera capabilities or you're malfunctioning at the time, it does happen. But if you could possibly do that, remember to do that, we'd appreciate it. So, Kevin is the applicant with us. Would they like to make a statement before we go to the commissioners?
Nobody signed up for this item.
Oh, nobody. Okay. We'll go right to the commission. We'll start on the other end this time. This is kind of a repeat item for us, but Commissioner Chandler?
Yes, one quick question for Carrie. So I want to make sure I understood correctly. The actual training will be 4 days a week. However, the request is 7 just in case they need backup days. Is that right?
That's right. They're going to be advertising for 4 days, but they want to have the flexibility to schedule for the rest of the week just in case.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Seipert?
No comment.
Commissioner O'Danny? Oh, you're muted.
No comment.
Commissioner Guzikowski?
Well, this is my district and I have had no complaints, all positive feedback actually. So I guess the only thing I'll be curious to see, this year is the changes and with the Amazon across the street. I don't know if that's going to impact much at all, but I think it's still worth, they're doing a good thing there with the House of Harley there. So.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Alderman Lark?
No, thank you. I don't have anything to add. I agree that this is a great training course. I took one a few years back, and they've been doing this for a few years now, so I have no issues.
Great. Commissioner Carrillo?
No comment.
Commissioner Sullivan?
I have no comment. Thank you.
And Commissioner Hanna?
Yes, actually, I have a question. maybe I'm missing it in the packet. How long this permit is gonna be for? Date-wise, not time-wise.
I believe it goes to next November 8th, correct? Yep.
Yes, the requested dates were for March 23rd to November 8th. Now,
Okay.
theoretically, that would include setup and tear down. So I don't know if you want to give them an extra couple of days, but that's what they requested.
Okay, and how about the neighborhood? Have they been notified or, because I know Harleys are pretty loud. So have anybody give any feedback about this, any concerns?
So notice is sent out to all landowners within 300 feet of a proposal. And we have not received any complaints from the previous permits for this particular course at this particular location. It's actually right along the freeway, so there's a bit of a buffer with the building. And I didn't actually take measurement, but the residential properties are actually buffered by other uses.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that all is aware of the usage of that area for that type of training, and along using of 13 streets abutting or across from Amazon too. So that would be the only concern, but enough lighting nowadays along 13 would actually help with that. And it doesn't go past 8 p.m. So that should be good too. Okay, that's all the comments and question I had. Thank you.
And I should mention that the 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., that's the longest that they would be allowed to operate during the summer months. They can only operate during daylight hours. So that would be significantly reduced, for instance, in November, where they wouldn't have daylight until, probably 7:30, and then they would probably be wrapping up right around 4.
Actually, Carrie, I just had another question. Are they going to have any restrictions like if they're going back home? Because we don't want to be directing them to use any local roads or anything like that. Is there any type of restriction we can add or discuss here?
Well, they are not bringing motorcycles to or from the site. The motorcycles are provided to them and they're stored in the cargo container.
I misunderstood.
So, yeah, so they're going to be driving their own personal vehicles to and from the site.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Okay, just to add to that, this is a really great public offering that Harley's been doing down here, or the House of Harley's been doing down here for a little while. They also never leave that south portion of the parking lot. As Carrie said, motorcycles are provided. There's written bookworks. They go over safety procedures. This really does help not only new riders, but experienced riders. And I think it's been very successful and well run down here. And Greg, you took it recently. And is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, that's all accurate. I mean, you don't leave the parking lot. You're just maneuvering the bikes around cones. And I think it is, although it's geared towards anybody that's riding a motorcycle, it's invaluable to new bikers like myself. I mean, it teaches you how to handle the bike appropriately, and prepares you for getting a license so you can actually ride on the roads.
Great, thank you, Greg. So I would favor it. I would favor the motion. So and if there's any other comment, questions, otherwise we'll do a motion.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Lorick moves that the Plan Commission approve the temporary use permit request submitted by Mark McLean, One Headlight Power Sports LLC, doing business as House of Harley Davidson, for the operation of a motorcycle operator training site on the property at 9725 South 13th Street with the following conditions. Number 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. Number 2, that all course activities shall be located within the south portion of the parking lot as per the proposed map. Number 3, that operations related to the training course be limited to between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Number 4, that there shall be 1 cargo container for the temporary storage of the course equipment and materials within the south portion of the parking lot as per the proposed map. The cargo container shall be removed within 7 days of the last training course. Number 5, that signage for the operation is limited to 2 4-foot by 8-foot, 32 square feet each temporary signs on the cargo container. And number 6, that the temporary use permit shall be valid between March 23rd, 2021 and November 8th, 2021.
Guzekowski seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Great. Thank you very much, commissioners. That gets us to item 6C, and that is a plan review. Review of site, building, and landscape and related plans submitted by Kevin Kennedy of Walden OCL LLC. This is for a multi-story residential building, commercial building on the portion of property at 7700 South Kia Way. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the zoning of this particular property is B6 PUD, and it's part of the Creekside Crossing Marketplace PUD. So those are the requirements that will be applied to the review of this proposal, which is for a 142 unit multifamily residential building and 4 stories. Also a future 6,000 square foot commercial building on the property. It's future because they want to reserve the ability to have a commercial portion of the property should the market allow for such in the future. And they're not sure exactly what the future designation would be, meaning they don't know exactly when the market is going to present itself for commercial viability, but they're presenting the northwest corner of the property for such. This is part of lot 4 of a CSM to be recorded, which is why it's still shown as part of 7700 South IKEA Way. One of the conditions of approval, of course, will be that the CSM is recorded prior to submission of any building permit application. So this shows you the layout for the apartment building as well as that 1-story commercial building in the northwest corner. And if we get right to it, we want to make sure that we understand, again, that we are applying the Creekside Crossing Marketplace PUD requirements, which were included in your packets. So with that in mind, the building for the 4-story apartment building meets all dimensional and setback requirements. We do want to focus a little bit on parking this evening, and particularly the 10 parking stalls that are adjacent to the public right-of-way, which is Creekside Crossing Circle. Within the PUD, conditions and restrictions is a requirement for a 5-foot setback with landscaping and screening installed at a minimum height of 3 feet and maintained between 3 and 6 feet. So it appears from the proposal that the parking stalls encroach slightly on that 5-foot setback. So that leaves the Plan Commission with the requirement to either approve with a modification or to require that the setback be 5 feet, no less. Modifications to any parking setback may be granted by a 3/4 majority approval, but only if deemed consistent with an approved master landscaping plan. Now, if we go to the landscape plans, we did receive information, but unfortunately we are missing a few details, including the heights of the plantings at installation and maturity. So unfortunately, staff were unable to determine whether or not these proposed landscape plans are in conformance with the master landscape plan in order to accurately and adequately screen those parking stalls in accordance with that master landscape plan that the Plan Commission had approved in March. So what we are recommending is for the landscape plans to be amended and brought back to the Plan Commission on the November 24th meeting date, so that we can have Plan Commission full sign off on plans. And we did run this past the applicant's consultants, and they are aware of that suggested condition of approval. If we turn back to the site plan, we can continue speaking about parking in terms of adequacy. So 77 surface stalls are proposed for both the apartment and that future commercial building, and 157 garage stalls, which would be specifically for the apartment, for a total of 234 on the site. We did receive a parking analysis yesterday, and I did forward that to the Plan Commission via email, so I apologize if you did not receive that before today. We did have a moment to briefly review that parking analysis, and what that analysis states or indicates is that based on ITE standards, 182 parking stalls would be required for the apartments. Now they go based on units, whereas within the staff report, our code goes based on number of bedrooms, which is why you'll see a little bit of a discrepancy. Back to the parking analysis, they also did say 25 to 27 would be required for the commercial portion. So it appears that the analysis indicates that they are slightly overparked for what they would need in terms of industry standards. And even though they might be slightly under what would be required per code standards, staff is fine with the analysis. Thank you very much to the applicants for providing that on short notice. And staff is satisfied with the analysis as presented. Turning now to the building itself, we will go through the elevations. It's a slightly large building with a few different changes in the relief for the building. So there's a bit of a cutout to allow for 2 courtyards on the west elevation, but this is the north. So this is what you would be seeing from the public right-of-way. This is the eastern portion. So this is what would be seen as you're traveling west on Drexel Avenue. South elevation, which is what you'd be seeing on Drexel Avenue. And the west again. So this is where those courtyards are, and you can see just to the left of the screen where that north entrance is. So the proposed materials include masonry base and utility brick, fiber cement lap siding in 2 different colors, cement panel and trim, asphalt shingles, standing seam metal roofs, which are over a few of those archway or column areas that you can see here on the ends. Painted steel pergolas in a few choice places, one being the north entrance, and then over a couple of the areas in the courtyard, that center area here, which is actually over doors for units, I believe. And then there's one on the south as well on the 4th floor. No mechanical units have been shown on the elevations. They have not yet been cited, but they do have to be adequately screened, whether they be ground, building, what have you. And those would have to be included in revised plans prior to permitting. In terms of lighting, we do have 2 different fixtures. One is for the parking lot and the other is just above the garage entrance. Now the garage entrance is actually built into the base of the building. So there's a proposal for one downward facing light above the garage door. For the remainder of the parking lot, we do have a pretty typical fixture that we see. It's similar to what is on IKEA Way, similar to what will be in the public right-of-way throughout the city, honestly. What we are recommending as per the staff report is that all lights be shielded, directed downward, which they are. And we are recommending something different here. What we are trying to incorporate is a maximum of 3,500 Kelvin. Now that has to do with lighting temperature. So what we have noticed with the changeover in particularly parking lot and street lighting is changing to LEDs gives the impression of being brighter, and the color temperature has a lot to do with it. Many of these lights are not actually brighter than what would be normally for the traditional light fixtures that are non-LED, but they appear brighter just because of the color temperature. It's something that we are looking at in the code update as well. So this is something that would be in line with that code update. We are also recommending that the shield facing the single family residential to the east be on that side of the fixture. So adding a little bit extra shielding to protect that residential area. Probably not so much on the south side, even though there are residences on the south side of Drexel Avenue. The building will probably do a lot of the shielding of that parking lot lighting. There are a couple other things that plan commissioners should note in the Staff report 1, a Lomar F, which is a letter of map amendment or map revision based on fill from FEMA, is required prior to submitting permit applications, and that's due to the on-site grading and filling for the site in the floodplain areas. There are some slopes shown that are in excess of what is allowed in the city. So either those slopes need to be flattened or there need to be retaining walls that would be approved by the engineering department before a permit can be issued. We did also include in the staff report some recommendations for either additional or elongated catch basins. Now, we did get some feedback from the applicant's consultants with regard to the catch basins. They are satisfied with the proposal as presented. So it's merely a recommendation, not a requirement. And the final thing is to ensure that the applicant's consultants work closely with the water and sewer utility regarding plans for that future commercial building. So what's on the screen right now are 2 renderings for what the building is anticipated to look like. This is the entrance on the north, and then another kind of southern exposure for you. With that, there's a suggested motion for approval on the screen. It is in 2 parts, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them. We do have the applicant's representatives available here, so I know they did want to have a moment to speak, but I think that they also mentioned that they were also satisfied with my presentation. So, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Carrie. I will give them the option. It was a great presentation, by the way, Carrie. But if they'd like to add anything, Kevin, would you welcome them on?
All right, anybody wishing to speak? We have Dan, the developer for the project. Dan, I'll need your name, address, and company for the record.
Hi, my name is Dan Romnick. I'm the Mandel Group. My address is 4524 North 105th Street in Wauwatosa. And so we are developing this alongside Northwestern Mutual and Kevin Kennedy. And so in speaking with Carrie this afternoon and viewing her presentation, we think she's done a good job of explaining to you the project, and we're here with some of our consultants. We've got our architect and civil engineer here that are able to answer any potential technical questions, kind of give a higher level overview of the architecture and design if that's a requested. And that will just be here to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Before we go to the commission, Kevin, is there anybody wishing to speak on the item? It's not a public hearing, but is there anybody that wants to weigh in?
Nope, just those that are related to the applicant.
Okay, then we'll go to the commission. We'll start to my left again. Christine?
Actually, I have no comments or questions. Thank you.
Okay. Matt?
We don't have any questions. We just like to make sure that we go over those points on point 7, which is the Lomar and the retaining wall of the steep slopes on the eastern part of that parking lot. We just want to reiterate that those are 2 points that we want to make sure that get addressed in the development of plans. Other than that, you know, speaking personally, I think it meets with the view and the theme of the prairie style throughout the entire development that the developer is going with. So I think they did a good job on trying to, you know, echo the theme throughout. And as far as the lighting, I agree with Carrie. We should try to lower that Kelvin a little bit like they are, 3,500. Typically, we're a little over 4,000 on street lighting. So I think making it a little softer will help out, and the shielding. So
Okay, and Matt, you are working along with Mario, electrical inspector, on that, make sure we got adequate foot candles and what have you, since everything's changed.
Yeah, Carrie will be looking at that with them, and we'll work side by side with Mario to make sure that that's addressed and correct.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Dawn?
No, I don't have any additional questions. It's a nice looking building.
Thank you. Greg?
So this is in the 2nd district. I did want to speak up. I did receive 2 calls opposing more apartments being built in Oak Creek. When I get calls or emails like that, I do try to reiterate Because many times the calls or emails are stating Oak Creek needs to stop building these. And I try to reiterate that the city's not building any apartments. It's developers and landowners that see the opportunity, analyze the market, and determine that it's a good fit. And then they reach out and make sure that the plan fits what Oak Creek's looking for, make sure it fits with our overall plans for the city. This is definitely a beautiful building. It's, at least from the pictures, it looks like a huge building. As far as the setback to the road, I would like to see the setbacks remain the same. It is a large development. And this is kind of the very first big thing that might be going in there. And I wouldn't want to start right off by issuing a variance for the setbacks from the sidewalks. I believe that was the 5-foot setback. So I would urge to kind of keep that setback if we can. There is a residential home obviously right next to this development. I'm assuming that there is no issue with that setback. Carrie, is that correct? That is a standard approved setback there already?
Yes, as per the approved PUD, the parking and the building setback to the property lines all meet the requirements. And the parking encroachment is a couple of inches, to be honest with you. It's 4.9 as opposed to 5 feet.
Oh, okay. So then I mean, for the few inches, I don't really have an issue with that. But being that it is just that small, I don't know if they can make that adjustment. I don't develop this or design this, so I don't know how easy it is to make that few inch adjustment. But for a few inches, I don't want to see it held up. But overall, I mean, I do think it's a great looking building. It'll be exciting to see things start going up in that area. I know it's part of a bigger picture. And like I said, I've heard nothing other than the two residents that reached out to me just to voice opposition to more apartments going in. So if more questions come up as more people talk, I'll speak back up. But other than that, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Great comments. Thank you. Chris?
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Don?
No questions at this time either.
Fred?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Chauncey?
I do have a couple questions for the applicant. My first question, can you provide a little information in regards to security around the building and access to the outside areas that are for the residents, specific with security?
All right, we did have Philip, an owner's rep. Philip will need your name, address, and company for the record.
Yes, my name is Philip Aiello with Mandel Group. Mandel Group's at 330 East Kilbourne Avenue in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Suite 600. In regards to your question about security for around the building, all access to the building would be through key fob access, with the exception of the entrance to the garage, which would be a remote entry controller. And as far as the courtyard areas go, those in order to access those courtyard areas, you would need to gain access to the buildings, and so it's restricted in that regard by the fob access.
Okay. My next question, in regards to the outside areas, can you provide a little more information on what occurs in these outside areas? Are there places to sit?
Oh, yeah. So it is designed to be a social gathering space once social gatherings are more acceptable. They are primarily going to be seating areas,
Yeah.
grilling
Down there?
areas,
Bake maybe?
and you know, I don't know if we'll have any sort of entertainment out there aside from that. Likely there'll be TVs as well.
Okay. Also, can you share some details about the flow of traffic to and from the apartment building?
Sure. So there, you can see that there are two driveway entrances to the property. The first driveway entrance, either one of them could be used to get access to the apartment area. The first driveway is really designed to be for the future retail space, and for prospective residents, where they could park in where it says the 15 stalls for the apartments. And then the secondary entrance is to provide a more direct access for residents to both the 37 surface stalls that are identified there. And then you can see on the southern part, if they keep driving straight south, you see some words that say ramp entrance and an arrow pointing down. And that is the entrance to the parking garage. As far as the primary entrance to the building goes, you can see the walkways on the north side of the building that kind of converge to the single entrance on the north side. And then there is a secondary entrance along the east side of the building, near where those 37 stalls are. And then finally, I should point out as well, to facilitate move-ins and move-outs, there is a area that is large enough for semi-loading near the entrance to the garage. The thought is that people moving in and moving out would park their vehicles there and then go in through the secondary entrance, which takes them straight to the elevator core.
Now, in regards to the different people coming in, so will the residents have assigned parking, or is there a space specific to visitors?
Residents will have assigned parking, and then there will be visitor stalls, likely those 15 stalls that you see where it says 15 stalls apartment. Those will be a combination, both used for prospective residents and also for residents' guests.
Okay. Now, quick question for Carrie. So signage will handle at a different meeting. Is this correct?
Yes, there were no sign plans that were included as part of this review. So any future signs for any part of the development would actually come back to the Plan Commission at a later date.
Okay, thank you. And one additional question. I know we went through, and this is for the applicant, I know we went through details about the apartment complex. I don't recall seeing any details about this commercial building, which is part of the request for us to review. Can you provide a little more information?
You know, we ideally would like to have a retailer in that space. We think that with the right retail would be a great amenity for our residents and the surrounding community. That being said, without knowing which retailer would go in that space, the best we can do is plan for the size, which the 6,000 square feet is probably the maximum that you could fit comfortably in that space, and then provide the appropriate number of stalls for a retailer of that size. But beyond that, I don't have any additional information.
Commissioner Chandler, that's really just a placeholder to show you where it would be, because the agenda is really just dealing with the multifamily at this time with shared drive and parking.
Okay. And that would be it for right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Very quickly, I'll just have a couple of comments. I agree with the comments from the commissioners. It's a really nice looking building. It fits our comprehensive plan. The PUD there really checks a lot of the boxes. A couple things I had circled but were addressed. The parking study came in. It appears they're slightly over parked. That's a positive for sure. We already talked about the lighting and the need to shield it and tone it down a little bit. Exterior masonry and brick veneer. Keep in mind, guys, that's a 4-inch minimum on there. We adhere very strictly to that in Oak Creek. Just kind of a warning shot across the bow on that one. Screening of all mechanicals. I know you didn't show it. Carrie brought it up. It looks like a gabled roof. I don't know if you have in-unit heating and AC. That's something I would really suggest you work with staff if it's going to be outdoor units and things of that nature, particularly for incoming gas, or if that's going to be located in the lower basement that way. Matt really put me at ease with items 7 and 8 pertaining to the engineering, and that's specifically for the lots, the LOMRF, and the retaining walls going forward. And then the landscape, again, we extensively went over this in March. They're going to continue to work with staff, and we'll see it again. So I don't have a whole lot at this time. It's really pretty nice looking. I do agree with Greg. You know, we always hear we're putting this, that, and the other thing in, and what it should be. This is really the opportunities that are presented to us, and they do fit our plans. So I think it's a great addition to Creekside Crossing. So anything else out of the commissioners or applicants? Yes.
Mayor, I have one question quick.
Yes.
For the applicant, and this is another, I guess, question, concern that gets brought up to me quite frequently. And I know I asked it back when the Drexel Ridge and the Orchard Hills apartments were going in. I often hear that this many apartments is going to overwhelm the school system. I know when the school district redistrict and redid their maps, they planned for future expansion in that. I was surprised to hear that Drexel Ridge at the time only had, I believe it was 13 school-aged children living in there. So for the applicant, do you have similar size buildings elsewhere? And can you kind of speak to the makeup of apartments, such as percentage of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, studios, and how often it's kind of targeted towards families with kids? I obviously can't tell the future, but do you have studies or data to show potentially how many school-aged children would be in a building like this?
This is Dan, and I'll let Phil respond to a portion of it, but I just wanted to give you an idea of kind of the unit mix that we have here. This will be targeted more towards a either single occupant or couple. We do have, most of our units are either the convertible units, which is a studio type apartment and 1 bedroom. So there's about of the units are studios and 1 bedrooms. We have of the units are 2 bedrooms, and then just 6% are 3, potentially have families in them or just residents that want extra bedrooms. So there's a total of 8 units with 3 bedrooms in the design as it currently stands. And then I can let Phil respond to the question about how many children we generally have within our buildings.
Could you please repeat those percentages just one more time? It kind of didn't catch it on my end, except for the 3 bedrooms.
Absolutely. We have about 64% of the units are studios and 1 bedrooms. 30% are 2 bedrooms. And then 6% are 3 bedrooms. And that 6% represents a total of 8 units within the building.
Thank you very much. It
You're welcome.
really shows the market you're tailoring to. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Phil Aiello. To follow on what Dan was saying is that you know, apartments, particularly with this type of unit mix and the size of apartments that are planned for this area, they tend not to be families that rent there, or if they do end up being families, frequently it is families who are looking to stay somewhere temporarily while they're looking for a single family home. In our other developments, similar to this size, and now I'm referencing our developments, but as a reminder, this is Northwestern Mutual's development, but we would anticipate maybe 5 to 8% of the residents there would be children. So that probably would put you in that 10 to 15 children range tops.
And that's across all school age children. So maybe I think about one per grade if you're talking about through high school, if that's kind of the range we're looking at.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So I
Go
provided on the screen right here the breakdown of the units and the number of bedrooms and things like that. So I just actually had one question for the consultants. If you could clarify what the 2-bedroom plus layout would be so that everybody's on board with what that really means.
Yeah, and Carrie, I can just speak to that quickly. The 2-bedroom plus would really be a 2-bedroom with a den, or there sometimes we put sort of an office or flex type space in those 2-bedroom units, where it's not necessarily a full 3-bedroom unit. It's kind of in square footage wise between an average 2-bedroom and an average 3-bedroom, and then it provides that kind of flex space, which in today's times is very popular for an or a den type area. So we can get a more detailed unit mix over to you if that's required as well. So
Great, thank you very much. Before we go much farther or to a motion, Assistant Chief Havey is with us from Fire. Is there any concerns from Fire with this? Assistant Chief, I'm sure it's sprinkled and you guys are working with them, but I'd like to hear from you also.
Good evening, Mike Havey, Assistant Chief Fire. No comments or concerns with the structure at this point.
Okay. Anything else from the council that's popped up through the course of conversation? Okay, if nothing further, we'll entertain a motion.
Lorick will move that the Plan Commission approve the site and building plans submitted by Kevin Kennedy, Walden OC LLC, for a portion of the property at 7700 South IKEA Way, Lot 4 of CSM, to be recorded with the following conditions. Number 1, that all relevant code requirements are in effect. Number 2, that a certified survey map approved by the Common Council creating the subject parcel shall be submitted for recording prior to the submission of building permit applications. Number 3, that a parking study be prepared and submitted to the city, which provides evidence to support the proposed reduction in the number of parking stalls prior to the issuance of building permits.
Alderman Lorick, we've received that. So if you wish to strike that from the motion, you could certainly do so.
Okay, we'll strike number 3. The new number 3 then is that the exterior masonry and brick veneers meet the minimum 4-inch requirement per code. Number 4, that the landscape plan be revised as necessary for compliance with code and PUD requirements and submitted for review before the Plan Commission at the November 24th, 2020 meeting. Number 5, that the plans are revised to include locations and screening for all mechanical equipment, transformers and utilities, roof, ground, building, etc. Number 6, that a copy of the LOMRF approved by FEMA is submitted to the city prior to the submission of building permit applications. Number 7, that retaining walls or reduction in slopes, max 3:1, are incorporated into revised plans prior to submission of building permit applications. Number 8, that all revised plans, site building, landscaping, lighting, etc., are submitted in digital format for the review by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
David, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Hold aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Thank you, commissioners. That gets us to our last consideration item of the night. Oh, I'm sorry, applicants, thank you very much for your input, taking time for the meeting. Appreciate it. And again, we'll be meeting again soon, so appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Item 6D, consideration of cancellation of our December 22nd, 2020 meeting. Carrie, any explanation?
We typically cancel this meeting every year since it is Christmas week, and recognizing that most folks would probably not be available for a meeting. Wanted to make it clear that even though our schedule is the second and fourth Tuesday of every month, December is accepted. So to make that perfectly clear, we're recommending cancellation. Unless
Okay.
everybody wants to meet on the 22nd, we can certainly do that.
Comment from any other commissioners?
So a question, Carrie. So if that's the case for Christmas, why are you not doing the same for the week of Thanksgiving too, no?
Because I missed it before we had a bunch of applications, so I apologize for that.
Okay. Well, I was hoping not to do this one, but oh well.
Yeah, I kind of was too, but unfortunately I missed it this year.
Okay, then I know what to cut from you. I'll come back and find you later, Carrie.
It's a little bittersweet. We do get off, but traditionally we'd always kind of socialize a little after the last meeting of the year there at Christmas. But given the pandemic and everything going on, that's not a good idea these days anyway. So I'm okay with canceling the 22nd. Any objections?
No, I'm okay with that too.
Seeing none, we would need a motion on that, please.
Seifert moves to cancel the meeting for December 22nd, 2020.
Hannah seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, I.
Grillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Okay. And before we get to adjournment, as usual, just really want to thank the staff. IT, Kevin, great job. Planning, very well prepared. Engineering and zoning, the same. Boy, we really zipped right through that. We had some heavy lifting, but when you're that well prepared, it just goes that smooth. So appreciate all the hard work. Carrie, thank you for coming in. I know you had some technical difficulties at home. Hope your power's back on.
I do too.
But beyond that, I don't see us coming back together as a group face to face for a little bit. Unfortunately, our numbers continue to rise in the city of Oak Creek. So until we can kind of reverse that trend, this will be our norm. So I want to thank all the commissioners also for their patience with this format. Do appreciate it. So with that, we'll look to adjourn.
Hey, Mayor?
Oh, yes, Brad.
Real quick, sorry, before we adjourn, just a reminder that tomorrow is Veterans Day. So please take the day to thank veterans past and present.
No, you're right, Greg. Usually we do the Veterans Day get together at the fire department. And again, like most of our events this year have gone by the wayside. Greg is right. And I'd like to do an early thank you to Greg himself, who is a veteran and currently serves us and protects us. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for your
second.
service, Greg.
Thank you.
Second that.
Third that.
Appreciate it. With that, adjournment.
Perillo moves to adjourn at 7:15.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Sullivan, aye.
Perillo, I.
Lorik, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Hold aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Okay, that is it. Thank you all. Thank everybody for tuning in. And again, stay safe. Practice all the CDC guidelines, and hopefully we'll be back together very sooner than later.